This episode of the PHFL NFL podcast is kindly brought to you by PC Pros Ayrshire. PC Pros Ayrshire are a small, Ayrshire-based business focusing on fixing and servicing laptops and computers. They also do custom-built PCs, and that's exactly how they helped the PHFL NFL podcast. But the boys at PC Pros Ayrshire had helped custom build a PC that was capable of recording, editing, and producing this podcast in a much more efficient way. And a big shout out and a big thanks goes out to those boys there. Check out PC Pros Ayrshire on Facebook, and we thank them for all their support for the PHFL NFL podcast. Hello, and welcome on in to the PHFL NFL podcast. Here, a kind of after hours dark edition. We're recording in the evening today, and joined as always by Kai and by Mikey. Mikey, who's just finishing scanning off his pasta, how his pasta bowl looks like.
Yeah, there was a wee tiny bit left in the bowl. This obviously the late night podcast has thrown me for a loop.
Yeah,
Not used to doing it at this time.
You're making this sound like some sort of special, like an after dark
Aye,
podcast.
Yeah, late night
You're allowed to
special.
swear in this one, Kai.
After the watershed.
Exactly. Unfortunately, we will still be released before the watershed, so you can't be too naughty. But we'll see. Depending if you get to talk about your Eagles later on, you might be a bit excited about that. So that's maybe
after dark.
Yeah, exactly. Foreshadowing slightly, but we
the sun will come up by the time he's finished talking about the Eagles.
We can go to our bed soon, I'm sure, Mikey, and just leave it to Kai. If you see that this one's 7 hours long, you know it's Kai's fault.
Not often this opportunity presents itself.
Well, an Eagles win? No, certainly not. Let's move on, though, to our first game, because we've still got 16 now. You know, we're back to 16 games a week, so a lot to talk about. And the first one was Thursday night football. We had the New England Patriots travelling to the Los Angeles Rams. They demolished the other Los Angeles team last week, and everyone thought, oh, they're going to do this. No, they didn't. 24 points to 3, the Rams won. New England brought back down to earth, possibly. But Mikey, do you think your outlandish claim that they might get to 8-8 is still on? Is this one of the ones you were expecting them to lose?
Yeah, I think when I made that prediction, I looked at the schedule and said that this would probably be one of the ones that they do drop. I'm just loving the Rams at the moment. I'm really thinking that they are going to be in the Super Bowl come February time, but I'm not sure if the Patriots actually stayed in Los Angeles for over the last week. Obviously had 2 games at SoFi Stadium, but yeah, the game was never really in doubt. I just think the Rams are too strong in all areas of the field for the New England Patriots to try and chalk up a win in this one.
Yes, and the main kind of act in that show for the Rams was the emergence of Cam Akers, who appears to be becoming the workhorse back in that backfield. Henderson had 2 carries in the game, 29 for Cam Akers, turning into kind of Derrick Henry's sort of workload. He didn't actually rush for a touchdown, but he did rush for 171 yards. Do you expect that to be the same going forward, the both of you, or do you think it might go to more of a split backfield, or maybe the hot hand, depending what one of them is in form?
I think at the start of the season it was kind of presumed that Cam Akers would be the lead back. I think he struggled. I think he was injured at the start of the season, or he was working through some injuries and some setbacks. So probably why it's taken a while for him to emerge. But I think this has kind of been what the Rams have been anticipating for a while. I think they've been using it as a committee, just to let him kind of get used to the NFL. But I think this week certainly shows he's capable of taking it himself against a pretty poor Jets team. And this week coming, I think you'll probably see much of the same in terms of numbers, but you might see increased numbers from the other two as well.
Yes, and a bit of a struggle on the other side of the ball for Cam Newton. Again, just 9 completions in the whole game with 1 interception. Stidham came in for 5 completions, 27 yards. It wasn't a a good performance from the Patriots after their fantastic performance last week when they really kind of blew out the Chargers. Though, was it slightly expected, perhaps, seeing as against the Chargers they didn't really have a huge amount of yardage and offense, really. It was mainly the kind of defense and special teams that did most of the work. As Mikey said, I'm quite excited with this Rams team. I think they could go all the way. I think we were talking about this last week when we were looking at different Super Bowl predictions. I think they very easily could do it. I think Coop, that's a mix of Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. The two of those as wide receivers. I think even though they've lost Brandon Cooks, I think the two of them are doing a great job there. And they've moved from one tight end and three wide receivers to two tight ends and two wide receivers quite a lot, with Higbee and Everett in there. And I agree with you, Mike. It's not often that we agree in lots of different things, but in this one we agree. I think the Rams could be an exciting team. Do you have anything else to mention about this game before we move on to Sunday's games?
Yeah, I just think one other thing that I feel Jared Goff has added a new wrinkle to his game is the rushing touchdowns. I know he only rushed for 11 yards, but I think that's back-to-back weeks he's had a rushing score on the goal line. Possibly taking it away from the likes of Akers and Henderson, but if Goff can keep doing that, especially making a deep playoff run, that will either keep happening or it will keep the defensive units guessing and will lead to more Akers and Henderson touchdowns. So maybe something to keep an eye on, obviously, as we go into the playoffs pretty shortly.
Yeah, so a good running game there from Cam Akers. And another team who normally has quite a good running game, see, I get my links in nice and early, is the Minnesota Vikings, who were travelling to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Two teams who are kind of fighting over a playoff place in the NFC, and Tampa Bay came out on top, 26 points to 14. I was meant to be having a look at this game. I did have a look at it, but I had a look at the other games maybe a wee bit more. Dalvin Cook rushed for 22 attempts, 102 yards in his touchdown. On the other side of the ball, Rojo rushed for 80 yards and a touchdown. Two good rushing performances from there. Tom Brady only completed 15 passes, but he got his 2 touchdowns, including that big 48 yards touchdown to Scotty Miller. I think just before that point, they were making the point on Red Zone or the game coverage that Tom Brady's numbers for passing over 20 yards aren't very good, and then he goes and throws a big 48-yard touchdown just to shut everybody up. Exactly. Kirk Cousins on the other side, I thought had a fairly decent game as well. The 1 touchdown, passing the ball to Irv Smith. The wide receivers for Minnesota were kept fairly quiet in terms of Jefferson and Thielen, but can we put that down to a kind of fairly good Tampa Bay defense? I think we expected Tampa Bay to be a good defense. I think they're certainly number 1 against the rush. I'm not quite sure how they rate against the pass, but I think they're a good defense. All in all, I thought it was a good game, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming out on top and possibly cementing their place in the playoff picture. Would you agree, gentlemen?
Yeah, I think this was a game they needed to win, the Vikings, to kind of get that wild card spot. It's still likely, the Cardinals might slip up, but this was the one this was their statement win that they needed.
I think, if the Vikings had won this week, they would have obviously taken the same record as the Bucs and put themselves in a very good position. But losing that, it means they're now 2 games back from the Bucs, and I think they'll probably struggle to make up 2 games on them from now until the end of the season.
Yeah, so looking at that playoff picture in the NFC at the moment, you've got the Bucs on 8-5, who look like they're kind of leading away for the number 6, because it looks like either the Rams or Seahawks will get the number 5 seed. Bucs on 8-5, Cardinals on 7-6, and then you've got the Vikings and Bears on 6-7. So it's looking interesting going into the next few weeks, the next 3 weeks of the season, to see how those teams are going to go into the playoff picture. I think the Bucs, in my opinion, are probably in, and it's a battle between the Cardinals and the Vikings for that last place. I know the Bears still mathematically can get in, but we'll talk about them later. I think we've talked about them for quite a long time, saying the Bears, I don't think they're very good.
I don't know what was going on this week in the NFL. The kickers, their Gatorade must have been spiked all over the NFL this week. Dan Bailey, just double checking, he was 0 for 3 on field goals, and he missed an extra point as well. That's 10 points straight off the bat that they could have been to the good. And I know that wouldn't have won them the game. It still would have been 26-24 to the Bucs. But if they make those field goals and if they feel like they're closer in the game, obviously we talk about momentum all the time. That could have been a massive turning point. So I think this game massively gets put down to Dan Bailey missing those kicks. It can't happen in these kind of games.
Yes, I totally agree with you there. One team we've just been talking about, though not in this game, was the Arizona Cardinals. And Kai was having a look at the Arizona Cardinals playing against the New York Giants. Were you not? Kai's looking at me slightly scared there.
No.
Were you not? I thought you were. Nonetheless, Arizona Cardinals beat the
We can
New
all
York...
talk about it.
Yeah? You don't want to talk about it, no?
I said we can all talk about it.
The Arizona Cardinals beat the New York Giants 26-7, which will make Kai happy because those Giants lost. I've noted down here just the Cardinals are now in charge of their own destiny. Technically, if they win their next 3 games, then they are in the playoffs.
Yeah, they've got obviously 2 divisional
This was
games.
your game,
like
Adam.
playing that.
Was it my game, was it? Oh, there you go. That shows you how much I was paying attention to this. Again, you see, a lot of these games I've just made notes down because I didn't think there was huge importance to them, and apart from the kind of playoff picture for this game. I was, obviously Arizona beat the team who were in front of them. We were fairly impressed with the way that the Giants beat the Seahawks, and we thought, oh, maybe they'll do great. I think possibly, obviously Daniel Jones came back into this game fairly rusty, you'd say, with only 11 completions for 127 yards. The running game didn't really get going at all, and Kenyon Drake with his rushing touchdown for the Arizona Cardinals kind of got their rushing game going. DeAndre Hopkins, no surprises there, being the lead receiver for Kyla Murray. I've been impressed with Kyla Murray, kind of just low level. Like, he seems to do a bit of everything. Some games he has not great games, some games he has amazing games, but I think a lot of the time he's fairly average and he's kind of getting this Cardinals team just to kind of sneak towards the playoffs. I know they'd been
I think last year, I know he won Offensive Rookie of the Year, but last year he looked like a college quarterback. This year he looks like an NFL quarterback. He's not making... It kind of shows, obviously, we're talking about Daniel Jones as well. Daniel Jones is still making those rookie college-style decisions, whereas that's the difference in levels between Kyler and Daniel Jones. Obviously, they were drafted in the same draft class, but Kyler Murray just looks like a nice, settled NFL quarterback, and hopefully can kick on from that for the next few years, because Hopkins had a quiet game, in my opinion. I don't think he actually did much, and that says it all for Hopkins. We speak about it with other players as well. 9 receptions for 136 yards. He was just making big plays up the field for them, but that was probably just another day at the office for Hopkins.
Yeah, Kai, I know you're talking that they've got the Cardinals have got 2 divisional games to go of the 3 that are left. Do you think the Cardinals can get into the playoffs? I know they're obviously, I say, they have their own, they're in charge of their own destiny here. If they win them all, they get in. But do you think they will?
I know one of the 2 games is against the Rams. Is the other one the Seahawks, or is it the 49ers? Just out of curiosity.
I will have a look just now while you talk.
I think basically, like you say, they've obviously got their destiny in their own hands. I can't see them beating the Rams. I can't see anyone beating the Rams between now and the end of the season. I think the Rams are too good on both sides of the ball at just being able to control the game that they'll wrap up the Cardinals probably. I don't want to say easily, because the Cardinals are still a very good outfit and they've still got a lot of options on both sides of the ball, both rushing and receiving. But I just feel like that Rams defense is so good right now, and they're making teams look very bang average. I just feel like the Cardinals might struggle. The
Cardinals play the Eagles at State Farm, the 49ers at State Farm, and then the Rams on the last day at SoFi Stadium. So, if it comes down to that last game...
That last game is massive. But I think the biggest one is probably against the 49ers. If they slip up in that, in a game where the 49ers obviously will come on to them, don't really have a lot to play for at the moment. I think if they slip up in that, they've got no chance.
Do you think that the Giants should have started Colt McCoy this week?
No, I don't think so. I think you've got to, even if Daniel Jones, coming back from wherever he was coming back, Kai's laughing away in the background there. But I think if you've got your starting quarterback coming back, even if he's only just fit or semi-fit or whatever was wrong with Daniel Jones, I think you've got to play him. I don't think any team wants to have the sentence, should you have started Colt McCoy as a sentence that is actually a valid point.
I'm just not sure if this was one game too soon for Daniel Jones. Obviously, he was out injured. And Colt McCoy looked okay in the games and snaps that he's played, but I think maybe if they'd stuck with Colt McCoy and maybe ran the ball a lot more, there was only combined 17 total rushing attempts from the Giants. I think it could have played out differently, but credit to Arizona for winning this one.
Yes, it was a good win from the team in the West Coast against a team from the East Coast. This is my link for the next game here. And Mikey was looking at this game. It wasn't me, actually, this time. It was actually Mikey.
You always comment on your links as well.
I know. I mean, that's just got to be... That's my thing now. I've got to tell you I'm doing the link. But another West
like when
Coast...
you explain a joke.
I have to explain my jokes because nobody gets them. But a team from the West going to a team from the East. Kansas City Chiefs going to the Miami Dolphins. And the Kansas City won 33 points to 27. I've said here, Miami gave Kansas City a scare, or not really, Mikey? Does it just look closer than it actually was?
Nah, I thought this was a very entertaining game. The Dolphins D came out and were all over Kansas City's offense at the start. We said in the group chat, I can't remember off the top of my head, I think it was a 3rd and 13 for the Chiefs, and Mahomes tried to scramble behind, tried to turn the corner and get sacked. And I think the next play was 4th and 41 or something like that. That's how big the loss was on that. Probably the biggest regressing stat of Mahomes' career, and probably will be for the rest of his career. It was that big. But
yeah.
Full season, Mahomes has only thrown 2 interceptions. And this week, out of nowhere, he throws 3. It obviously keeps the Dolphins streak alive. I think it's 18 or 19 games in a row with one takeaway, at least one takeaway, which is a phenomenal stat. Before I get on to the Chiefs, I kind of like this Dolphins team, although they lost this week in the playoffs. I think that if they get to the playoffs, that still obviously remains to be seen. They're going to go out. They weren't meant to be there. If they make the playoffs, they have no right in being there this season. That's not probably what they realistically were aiming for. If they get to the playoffs, they are going to play like they've got absolutely nothing to lose, and I don't think any team would want to play against that. But Kelsey, again, 136 yards receiving and a touchdown on 8 receptions. Currently, Kelsey's the number 1 in receiving yards, and if he finishes number 1 this season, it will be the first time in history a tight end has had the receiving title, which is just absolute madness. Obviously Tyreek Hill's on 1,158 as well. Kelsey's just 100 over him. Really interesting game. The Dolphins made a game of it late. Gesicki looks like he might be injured for them going forward, which is a shame because he played really well. He has been playing really well the last couple of weeks. He seems to be the red zone target for Tua. 65 yards and 2 touchdowns. But yeah, Chiefs came out of this probably a little thanking their stars a little bit that they've won this game, because the Dolphins did make a game of it. But I think that's another wrinkle that the Chiefs have had to themselves this season. These are the kind of games that maybe in seasons gone they would have lost, but they stuck through it and they've done brilliantly to get the win. And obviously we'll get to it, but they've taken the number 1 seed in the AFC as it stands. Yeah,
because the Miami Dolphins went up 10 points to nothing. And I think at that point we were thinking, oh, we've got a game in our hands here. And then Kansas City had 30 unanswered points to almost just shut everyone up and just went, no, we're going to win this game. Including the Mecole Hardman 67-yard punt return, which is always good to see a bit of special teams play. I like it. I like a punt return or a kickoff return. And then in that last quarter, you saw that the Dolphins started to come back, with some 17 unanswered points of their own.
One stat that's really popping out to me, I've just seen this for the first time. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 16 rushing attempts for 32 yards. Tyreek Hill had 1 rushing attempt for 32 yards.
Yeah.
Must have been a jet sweep or something, but he's only had 1 and he's reached the same as Edwards-Helaire. I think people have had their questions about CEH this season. I know a lot of people, including yourself, Adam, drafted him in the first round, and I think you were right to do that at the time, but at the end of the day, as a rookie, and he's still going to be a massive weapon for that offensive unit going forward with the Chiefs. Just strike this down to maybe a learning curve year for him and see what happens the next couple.
I'm very worried for his value that they might actually sign Bell. I think if Bell's happy there, obviously Bell's there for the rest for the year. He signed a 1-year deal, hasn't he? And
Yeah.
A lot of people thought he's going there to win a Super Bowl, but I think Andy Reid actually quite likes Bell, and I know that he didn't use him a huge amount in this game, but I think that that's worrying because they've got Edwards-Helaire, they've got Bell. Even if he doesn't re-sign, they've got Williams coming back. That backfield's got a lot of people in it, and if Edwards-Helaire isn't doing as he's meant to, which in the last few games he's played, he's not been amazing. You know, he was getting a lot of kind of nearly 100-yard rushing performances, but not getting the touchdowns at the start of the season. But now he's kind of struggling with yards as well, and he's not been the most efficient. I'm slightly worried for him, in my opinion. I'm worried he might get lost in that Kansas City backfield ether. But who knows what's going to happen? I think on the other side of the ball in the rushing game, the Dolphins really missed Gaskin again.
I missed Gaskin.
Yes,
Honestly.
Kai had him in his fantasy team, but I
think that. Sorry, I was just going to say that Dolphins performance is made even more impressive by the fact that going into that game they were already without Myles Gaskin, Salvin Ahmed, Matt Breida. So they're their first three running backs for a start, and then Preston Williams as well. So they're already without probably four of their top offensive weapons. And during the course of that game, they lost Devontae Parker, they lost Jakeem Grant, and they lost Mike Gesicki. So they finished the game with basically their top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, their top 7 offensive targets not on the field, and they still managed to put up a fight against the Chiefs.
So the Chiefs aren't that good then, is that what you're saying?
No, the Chiefs are rubbish.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think there's a lot to be hopeful about if you're a Dolphins fan or if you're part of that Dolphins franchise. I know me and you were saying off air just before we started that obviously the Dolphins have the Texans pick in the next draft, and it looks like that might be quite a high pick. So coming out of this off season, getting a pick in that draft, there could be very, very good things to come for this Dolphins team.
Definitely, I think this is unexpected for them as well. They weren't expecting to do this well this season, and the fact they are, and they've got so many picks still to come, this could be a start of something fun, especially with the way the Bills are playing. That AFC East, losing the Patriots from the top of it, but getting these two teams, it could make it very interesting indeed. Kai, I promise you, you did look at the next game.
100%,
okay?
This was me.
Yeah, it wasn't just me trying to pass the buck. This was an AFC South matchup. Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars, 31 points to 10. The Titans won. I'm just looking at the game log here. There was no point scored in the last quarter. It was all in the first three quarters. There's nothing in the last quarter.
I think both teams had given up by then.
Yeah, and do you know who
Did
had?
Jags score a point?
They got 10 in total.
Sorry, that's a chalk that down to a win for them.
Exactly. There are several talking points, but I've just started it with King Henry, and then I'll leave it to you, Kai.
Yeah. Mikey's pretending to place a crown on his head.
Is that what he was doing? I thought he was doing a weird kind of dance.
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, absolute monster of an afternoon. 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, 26 touches. Like
quiet game for him then, yeah.
Oh, honestly, the guy is not human. I think now I saw something mad after that saying he's now the first player to have 2 200-yard rushing games against 2 different teams. So both the Texans and the Jags have been subject to 200-plus rushing yard games from him twice. Poor teams.
Goodness me.
Poor teams. Turned into a very routine win for the Titans in the end. I think the Jags are destined for a top 2 pick now. They're absolutely hopeless. And I think the sign of it being bad is when you're playing badly and your quarterback's not playing well. So you turn to Gardner Minshew.
Minshew!
Peace, man. Give us peace.
Why are you so high on the guy?
Just love him. And we'll get to another quarterback that I'm very high on later on in the podcast that Adam definitely won't like.
He's just... I don't rate him at all.
I think
the best of a bad bunch.
He's better than Mike Lennon. The best. He's better than, is it Jake Luton? He's the best that they've got. I've got a stat here. I know this was Kai's game, but I seen this and just had to write it down. Derrick Henry obviously went for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's his 4th career game with at least 200 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Only 3 players in history have had 3 games. Do you think you can name them? So 3 players have had 3 games of 200 plus yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, whereas Derrick Henry now has 4.
Dickerson.
No.
That was the one that came right. LaDaine Lane Tomlinson
Is one of them, yeah.
Yeah. Emmett Smith.
Nope.
No. AP.
Not very good.
Did AP do it?
AP's a no.
Oh, I have no idea if the other two, to be honest. Are they ones I should know?
So Barry Sanders.
Oh, Barry Sanders, yes.
And Jim Brown was the other one way back in the day.
Of the
But
Browns fame, yes.
they're all retired, obviously, have been for years, and had 3 games with 200 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry already has 4, and he isn't slowing down anytime
soon. Do you know who's also got that statistic? Is Antonio Gibson for me in Madden. So if Antonio Gibson wants to do that in real life, that would be great for me.
How many games has he got? Like 8?
He's got 51 rushing touchdowns in a season, so that's.
I mean, there's not really much else to talk about in the game. James Robinson was relatively quiet. I say that, like 67 yards, but with those 67 yards, he now becomes the highest scoring scrimmage yard player by an undrafted rookie since 1967. He has the most scrimmage yards of any.
They really have found a diamond in the rough there, haven't they? Really, like that.
Madness.
I don't know what it was. Again, I don't claim to be an expert.
I don't know what drew them to him.
Yeah, I don't claim to be an expert on college football.
32 teams passed on him 7 times over.
Yeah.
Including the Jags.
It's crazy, really.
And then, yeah, I honestly think it's a 1 in a million kind of thing.
Yeah,
it really is. It's fair play to him. He's hopefully, if they get a good quarterback, there's talent there. I've said in previous podcasts there is talent there. He just needs maybe better coaching and definitely a better quarterback. And who knows what could happen with this team.
Did I hear that right? Mikey was saying that Minshew is not a good quarterback. That's good.
That's not my words, but you can say that if you want.
I mean, you just said
you won't be saying that when Minshew's lifting the Super Bowl next year.
You've just said
this year. That would have been some effort.
You've just said, Mikey, that the Jags need to find a good quarterback. So I think that in itself suggests that Minshew is not a good quarterback.
Because it's night time. I've used all my brain cells for the day, and now I'm just kind of splitting out stuff.
Oh no, this is the dark side of Mikey. He also hates Minshew, the dark side, but he doesn't let that out during the day. That's this.
Yeah.
The only other question I have of you both is just on DJ Chark. Obviously, he had a relatively good season last year, and he kind of started this season and had a couple of good games. Do you think it's a case of him kind of flying under the radar and not really doing a hell of a lot because he's not that good? Or do you think it's a case of him struggling with the changing quarterback situation?
I think looking at the statistics here, Kai suggests it's more to do with the quarterback, because he did have 9 targets but only caught 2 balls. Now, I don't know how many of those were catchable balls, but normally when it's stuff like that, it's been thrown at just because they want to throw it to him, even if he's not able to catch it.
Yeah. So, I think, because when you look at, Keelan Cole, 12 targets, Laviska Shenault, 11 targets, and he's the next with 9. He's obviously one of the main options there. It's just that he's potentially running the deeper route. And
I think the Titans' defense isn't very good, but I think their best corner, if I was to put it on somebody, I would put it on DJ Chark. So that's probably why that's happened. And I was about to compliment Minshew, but certainly Glennon's probably smart enough to aim for the people that aren't being tracked by the good defensive players. But yeah, I think we've talked about that game long enough, to be honest, Kai.
For a game that actually wasn't that exciting, we managed to turn that into a better conversation.
That's put Tennessee Titans onto a 9-4 record, though, and we'll talk about another team in that division, 9-4, later on in this episode. Instead, we're going to talk about 2 teams that aren't that good and don't really have much to talk about in terms of playoff picture, so I'm going to batter through it. And this one was my game. It was the Dallas Cowboys at the Cincinnati Bengals. Dallas won 30 points to 7. A rout, you could say. Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard rushing for similar rushing yards, 48 and 39 respectively. No rushing touchdowns. Andy Dalton did throw 2 touchdowns, 1 to Pollard and 1 to Amari Cooper. But the big talking points, really, would you say, in this game was the fact that the Bengals had 3 giveaways in the first 16 minutes of the game, which was poor. And it was Giovanni Bernard's and Kai, if you want to, talk about this, you can, because I know that Gio Bernard was in your fantasy team this week. It was Giovanni Bernard's first ever fumble on a rushing attempt.
I have not played the man once this year. He's been sitting there with Joe Mixon obviously on IR. I was like, right, here we go. And then the 1 week I need to play him because Gaskin obviously goes on IR very late on. He decides to fumble randomly out of the blue for the first time ever, and then does nothing else for the rest of the game because Lamaji Pirine decides to go on instead.
Samaje Pirine, yes.
Lamaji. Who the hell is Lamaji? Yeah, not impressed.
Yeah, so the Bengals dropped to 2-10-1 with that loss, and the Cowboys are 4-9. They're actually only 2 wins off of top of that division at 4-9, which is something I didn't think I was going to say. But yeah, 2 teams who really aren't hugely relevant, and I don't mean that in a horrible way, but they're not. So let's not talk about it too much more. I would say AJ Green is the only thing I would comment on in this game. The fact that he did get 6 receptions from 7 targets and a touchdown. So after last week, we saying that his career is over.
Clearly listens to the podcast.
Exactly.
Kai said that.
Yeah. So AJ, if you want to join the podcast for an episode, we can talk about your whole career. You can tell us where you want to go next. And
we could do it without Kai.
Yeah, we could do it without Kai. We could replace Kai with AJ Green. And no offense, Kai, but I think
maybe that's his retirement plan, that he's going to join the podcast instead. So we'll have to ship Kai off.
Maybe I think that would bring in more numbers than you. I'm afraid, Kai.
I think it would bring in more numbers than any of us, if we're being brutally honest.
I think I'd change the name to the AJ Green podcast, and that would probably bring more folk in, definitely. But yeah, AJ, if you're out there listening, which you definitely are, then feel free to come on whenever you want. But I'll stop dissing your team now and move on to another game I was looking at, which was the Houston Texans at the Chicago Bears. And the team that I think is pretty rubbish, the Chicago Bears, won 36-7. Mitchell Trubisky doing Mitchell Trubisky-like things with his 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. 24 completions, 267 yards, passing the ball to Graham, Mooney and Robinson for touchdowns. The main talking point for the Bears side of the ball, I would say, was David Montgomery doing his big 80-yard touchdown at the start of the game, which was a joy to behold for those who had David Montgomery in their dynasty team that might have helped them beat Kai this week. Kai's shaking his head again. To be fair,
I actively tried to lose another game and almost won it.
You did almost win, yeah. But yeah, it was a good performance from Montgomery there. Breaking 100 yards after he'd been struggling a little bit this season. I think he had a lot of opportunity and hadn't really been doing much with it, but he got a 100-yard game there. Very much helped by the 80-yard gain from there. On the other side of the ball, Deshaun Watson, didn't throw an interception. His passer rate was over 121 completions, 200 yards. The Houston Texans are struggling without their players. That's an obvious sentence to say.
I mean, yeah.
But I mean, it's great analysis from me, really. But no David Johnson in the backfield there, and the wide receiver position, them losing. We had talked last week about Fuller and there's no Cooks and all this. And I'm just looking at the names, and I don't know who half of them are in the receiving game there. It's a season to write off, and the only thing that would make this season better for the Texans is if they had the number 1 or their first round pick to pick a player with.
Right.
But instead they traded that away to the Dolphins, and yeah, it's not going to be fun. Watson looked a bit sore.
A write-off now.
Yeah, a big write-off. Watson, I don't know, were you guys seeing Red Zone at the time when Watson got injured in his
I don't know what happened.
Delicate area? I looked at the replay. He didn't seem to understand how he got hit there, but he certainly was grasping it in a non-illegal way on a football field, as he was a bit sore. But yeah, again, I think a season to write off for the Texans. The Bears won this game, but I think even though the Bears are now 6-7, same record as the Vikings, they were 1 game off getting in the playoffs. I don't think the Bears are going to get there. Do any of you disagree with me?
I think it's hard to disagree.
My breath.
Yeah, I think we can all say PHFL podcast, outlandish claim of the season, as I've been saying since we started the podcast. The Bears aren't actually that good, even though they went like 5-2 or something. I was like, they're not good, and I think we can agree they're not going to get.
I mean, like there was only 6 points scored in the whole second half.
Yeah, they kind of went ahead
field goals
early on and just decided to keep that there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about this game, because in my opinion, again, two teams that not really much happening for them. Even though the Bears can technically get in, I don't think they will. Mikey, you were looking at, to be honest, another two teams here that really can't do anything. It was the Denver Broncos and the Carolina Panthers, Mikey. The Broncos won 32 points to 27. And I look behind the curtain for everybody. Mikey did say to us before this, I've really not written anything down for this game because it's not really got any relevance on the rest of the season. So let's listen to his in-depth analysis.
Game I had 5 points. For my other two games, I've got 3 or 4 points. I literally don't have a point. The only thing I will say is that I thought Drew Lock played fantastic. I think this was a career day for him. Just checking the stat sheet here. He went for 21 of 27 for 280 yards and 4 touchdowns and a 149.5 passer rating. So I didn't get much better than that, to be honest, from Drew Lock. Someone that kind of came out of nowhere was Fumagalli for the Broncos. 4 receptions for 53 yards. It was just obviously not much going for both these teams, playoff aspirations, and they're not really anywhere near the draft picks either. They're just kind of the middle of the road teams, but good performance from the Broncos as a whole. I thought the Panthers were going to win this game. We said at the start of the season, obviously, with Christian McCaffrey being out, and Mike Davis obviously has had a massive input to this offense. And we thought that when CMC came back, it would probably lead to even better things for Davis. But I feel that Davis has faltered a wee bit over recent weeks. I know he scored 2 touchdowns this week. But I'm not talking about this game specifically, but it's clear that they're missing Christian McCaffrey, both in the passing game and the rushing game. But as I'm saying that, obviously, Mike Davis had 51 yards and 2 touchdowns. But it was just not the best performances from the Panthers, and I thought the Broncos definitely deserved the win. KJ Hamler as well, two receptions for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Efficient.
Not a bad day for him.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, just an overall good performance from the Broncos. I think both teams will have a lot of positives to take from this season, even though they've not made the playoffs. I think at the start of the season with CMC and the team, the Panthers might have been looking to make a playoff run, but obviously neither team's really in that position just now. But I think the Broncos can take a lot of positives from this game and from a lot of aspects of the season. Obviously, they had Von Miller out for the full season. They had their quarterback struggles because of COVID. So just take this one and learn a lot from it, because it was a massive win for them. And as I said, thoroughly deserved.
Yes, to be honest, I totally agree with you. Having watched some of the highlights myself, I think the Broncos were the better team in this game. You said that both teams could take positives from this game, Mikey. But see the next game you were looking at. Could one of the teams take any positives from that? As the Seattle Seahawks beat the New York Jets 40 points to 3.
Of course, the Jets are going to have the number 1 pick, so there's always positives to come from losing in American sports.
That's very true. You're always the optimist, aren't you?
Yeah. What have we not said about the Jets already?
They're good, because that would be lying.
The one thing that they didn't do this week was fire off a quick score in the first quarter, and we maybe had in the back of our mind, are we in for a bit of a game here? They have been doing that of late, but nah, Seahawks were just on top of things. Never looked like they were going to lose this game. Probably the biggest talking point of it all was Jamal Adams, obviously playing against the team that drafted him. And with the sack on Sam Darnold, he is now the most sacks in a season by a DB in NFL history, or since NFL began tracking individual statistics. So 8.5 sacks on the year. Previous record was by Cardinals safety Adrian Wilson in 2005. He had 8 sacks. And obviously the season's not finished yet. Might be able to get into double figures, but it's strange because Jamal Adams, I don't think, has had the best of seasons. I don't think the Seahawks have got what they expected from him. No. Obviously, it's difficult going into a new system and things like that. So, and I do think we'll see the return over the years with Jamal Adams. The whole Seahawks D has not been good this season at all. So credit to him for having the most sacks by a defensive back in NFL history. But yeah, the wins were never in doubt. I was slightly nervous when I seen Metcalf injure his ankle on one of the first snaps of the game. And I actually, during red zone, went downstairs to make myself a cup of tea and came back to see that he'd scored. So clearly and hopefully there'll be nothing bad with injuries going forward, because not just myself, he's going to be a big player for a lot of people in the fantasy playoffs.
Yes, I think he definitely will be a big player come the fantasy playoffs. An interesting statistic for the Jets. I'm not sure, was it the first drive they got in this game, but certainly before this, they scored on their opening drive in 6 straight games before this game, which was the longest streak in the NFL, which was...
I would never have thought that.
No, exactly. And looking at it here, they scored a field goal on their first drive again, so they've extended that record. So it's the longest record in the NFL. They score on their first drive, but as we've seen so often, they don't seem to score ever again. Like they score on the first drive and then don't score for the rest of the game, which is not the most efficient way to play in the NFL. I would say, again, I'm not an expert at this, but I would suggest you need to do more than just score on your first drive.
The question obviously just remains to be seen is what are they going to do with that number 1 pick? Are they going to take Trevor Lawrence and move on from Sam Darnold, or are they going to, because if they trade that number 1 pick, this isn't just any regular year of having a number 1 pick. This is Trevor Lawrence we're talking about, probably the best college prospect since Peyton Manning. And usually a number 1 pick would take a lot of draft capital or players to get, but people know that they're getting a generational talent in Trevor Lawrence. How much can you possibly give away in order for it to be a fair trade, basically, for both parties?
Well, what I'm hearing is 3 first-round picks.
See, I think more. Including those 3 first-round picks, I think you still need to offer things like a 4th or a 5th at some point, or future draft picks. It's such a difficult situation for the Jets, because whoever, if it happens, is trading up that number 1 pick, people know what they're getting in Trevor Lawrence.
To be honest,
that's the issue.
You get a good quarterback out of Trevor Lawrence, right? There is no doubt in that. A very, very good quarterback. But I feel like the Jets' issue isn't at quarterback.
Yes.
So you think they'll be better off?
A bit of a riot all over the field. And I actually don't think
they stick with Darnold?
I'm not saying they do, but if they do stick with Arnold and get another 3, potentially 4 first-round picks, and they stack up I don't know, a defensive line or defensive players or targets for Sam Darnold to hit, like, they just need to change something. And I feel like of all the things they need to change, the quarterback's maybe not the biggest issue. But I mean, obviously, when someone like Trevor Lawrence comes calling, it's kind of difficult to turn them down.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think the Jets fans certainly would like to get Lawrence. I think, that kind of generational talent, they believe that he could drag this team through. What would be very disappointing is if in 3 years' time they've got Lawrence and they've still a losing record because the rest of the team's so bad around them. The only question about that is perhaps if you get Lawrence, maybe free agents are more likely to want to come to you because they know that he's so good and they want to play with him. But if it was down to me, in the quarterbacks ranking show that we did, I ranked Darnold fairly high. So I think he's a very good quarterback. I think you trade away the first pick, you get a whole load of draft picks in, and then you just build a team around Darnold that's actually capable. First, what you've got to do is get rid of Adam Gase and then do something.
Yeah, it's so difficult though, because as a Jets fan, if you go through an 0-16 season in order to get a number 1 pick and to get Trevor Lawrence, and then you trade him away, whatever you're getting back has to get you to the playoffs within the next 2 years. Like it's as simple as that. Or even in saying that, Trevor Lawrence has to get you to the playoffs in 2 years. This is just such a difficult situation for the Jets to be in, because they could potentially go on an 0-16 season and still not really gain anything from it.
Yeah, it's tricky, and you know what? We don't get paid enough to make those decisions, but those guys who are the general managers of those NFL teams certainly do. So Hopefully they figure that out.
We'll leave it to them for the time being.
Exactly. You know, if someone wants to hire me to do that job, I'll happily do it for that money.
You can't say it'll be good.
No, exactly. But I mean, to be fair,
Yeah.
half the ones in the NFL don't appear to be very good. So,
Can't
if
get much worse for the Jets either.
exactly, if O'Brien can do the general manager's job and the head coaching job at the Texans and then get fired and still get all that money, then I'll happily do it. We'll move on to the next game, Kai, because we talked in the last game you were talking about so long ago now. Look, me and Mikey have taken over the middle bit of this podcast. But so long ago now, you were talking about the AFC South matchup between Tennessee and Jacksonville. And now we're talking about another AFC South team, the Indianapolis Colts and the Las Vegas Raiders. 44 points to 27, Indianapolis won this game. It leaves them with a 9-4 record as well as the Titans, which makes that division quite tasty going forward. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, the game itself, despite the scoreline, wasn't the most exciting game in the world. I almost find it a bit weird. I never find watching games involving the Colts that exciting.
How dare you with my boy Johnny Taylor?
They always seem to play really well. They just win. They win easily. I find a lot of times. Obviously they've had a couple of comeback games, or they've had to grind it out towards the end of the game. But I don't really think the Raiders put up much of a fight this week. Also, people, or I know certainly you two, are aware of my dislike for the Raiders in general. I don't find them a very enjoyable team, but that's for another day. Obviously, the Colts kind of needed to win that to keep pace with the Titans at the top. Titans kind of stay top based on their divisional record and their record in the conference. Raiders have dropped 2 big games in the playoff hunt, obviously against the Jets. Last week they just scraped through, but the previous week against the Falcons. Falcons?
Falcons?
I think I've ever said it like that before in my life. Previous week against the Falcons was a game they really should have been winning, and they put up one of the worst performances from a team this season. And then obviously this week didn't really put up much of a fight against the Colts. I think the other kind of games, especially this one this week against a big rival in the conference, they need to be winning that kind of game if they want to keep up their playoff aspirations, I think. Again, the Colts weren't that exciting, but they had 2 players with really, really good games. T.Y. Hilton's been very good again. He's in a rich vein of form.
The only thing he's not very good at, Kai, is his dancing.
That was horrendous.
It was very bad.
Like, genuinely horrific.
They are so negative with people with T.Y. Hilton and Minshew and all that.
I mean, I like Hilton as a player. I just don't like him as a dancer.
do what you're good at, mate. Like, got 2 touchdowns, got your team a win, quit the dancing.
You know someone who can dance, though, and I'd love to see him dance, is Jonathan Taylor with his career day.
Absolute biggest day of his life.
It was literally a career day in the NFL, yeah.
Aye. 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. He really was impressive.
Yeah.
It really was good.
I'm glad I definitely
finally listened to you, Adam.
I know, I'm glad I definitely played him on both my fantasy teams this week. Which I didn't.
Oh, that's right.
One of them I didn't. I still managed to beat you though. But yeah, it looks like it looks like they might be listening. They might be listening to me as you say, Jonathan Taylor. Give him the ball, and he does good things, and he did do good things, and made me happy.
Yeah, not really much else to say on that game. Didn't think the Raiders were very good. Nelson Aguilar, I think Mikey's mentioned that a few times, was obviously that the Eagles potentially miss him a wee bit. He just seems to. He's very. I find him a very run-of-the-mill receiver, but he's good at what he does. 5 receptions, 100 yards, a touchdown, 36-yard grab for the touchdown. But he was good. He was good.
Yes. Do you have anything?
Bright spark in a poor Raiders offense.
Do you have anything you want to say, Mikey? No, he doesn't. He's just looking at me blankly now.
No, it would appear not. No.
no, nothing.
I thought you wanted to say something looking at you, but no, you.
Nah, I think that the Raiders Colts game this week and the Vikings Bucks were massive in terms of wildcard spots, playoff positioning. and the two stronger teams in the Bucks and the Colts came out on top. I thought maybe one of them would make a statement win, either the Vikings or the Raiders. But I mean, the last three games, obviously the Raiders were horrific against the Falcons, scraped by the Jets, and now this, I'm starting to change my mind on them looking like a playoff team. Maybe a year too early for them, but you never know. They're let me just double check here. They are what, 7-6 just now?
7-6.
Still finished with a 10-6 record, but with the strength of the AFC just now, that might not even get you a place in the playoffs.
Well, looking at that just now, talking about the playoff picture, you've got the Browns and the Colts currently 9-4, the Dolphins and Ravens 8-5, and the Raiders 7-6. So even if they do get 2 wins to put them, 9-7 to finish the season, I don't think that's enough. So as you say, they need to get to 10-6, and even then, I think it's going to be tight. I think there's a lot of good teams in there.
Yeah, massively. That's what I was gonna wait until our playoff predictor. But what do you think is the strongest conference, the AFC or the NFC?
I think it goes without saying that it's the NFC.
To me, it's AFC.
Purely just in the NFC East. No, I'm kidding. AFC.
Right. Well, he's been stupid. We really do need AJ Green instead of him.
I think the top of the NFC is maybe stronger than the top of the AFC, but then that kind of playoff picture area is stronger in the AFC, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it just now, like Chiefs, Titans, Bills, Steelers could all make deep Super Bowl challenges, whereas in the NFC, you're only really looking at potentially Packers, Rams, maybe Saints. Right now, I think the AFC is the better conference this season.
Well, I would put, if I was to rank them all like the teams 1 through 32 or something, I think I'd put the Chiefs at the top, but then I think the next few positions would include the Packers, Saints, Rams, and then I would go back to the AFC to fill in the kind of rest of the top 10 probably. So I think I prefer the right at the top of the NFC, and then but certainly the AFC kind of the 3 seed through to about the kind of 7, 8, 9. I think they are certainly a lot better than the way the NFC is playing. I mean, the bottom of the AFC is a lot worse than the bottom of the NFC.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, that's the answer to that question. Kai, you were looking at another game involving the NFC East. The now division-topping Washington football team, who beat the San Francisco 49ers 23 points to 15. They have their defense to thank, don't they?
Oh my, this was a good game.
It wasn't high scoring.
Washington.
Yeah, I was going to say
it wasn't high scoring, but it was a good game to watch. Washington had a good day on defense. Sorry, just to come back to the fact that obviously Washington now top the division. It doesn't feel right to see a team are topping a division at 6-7.
No, it doesn't. I mean, the only team to get in the playoffs with a less than 500 record was the Seahawks, and they were 7-9.
Yep.
This could be
the last one I can remember.
Yeah, this could be another less than 500 team getting in the playoffs.
I think there's a very good chance it will be. But I mean, Washington are on a very good run of form. 4 wins on the bounce, really cementing their place at the top of that division, which is still pretty uncertain. There's still a lot to happen. Divisional games to be played. You never know how that could end up. My next point is just Chase Young is good.
He is very good. Yes.
He did a bit of everything. He just
Mikey shakes his Ohio State jumper.
Mikey's talked about him a few times over the last few weeks in terms of how good he is, and I think this game really showed you just how good he can be. Like 2 tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss, a fumble recovery, took it for a touchdown. Like he was everywhere. The guy is a great talent, and he's a great player for the Washington football team to have for years to come.
I think it says it all with Mike Tomlin on the sideline said to him, I don't ever want to have to lose 13, 14 games to get a guy like you. Like to get a guy like Chase Young, you need to have like a 2-14 record basically if you want to get him. I think he was the best player in the draft by a country mile. The Bengals were obviously just in need of a quarterback. But as I said on Sunday to you too, the guy I've said it twice now already, but I mean it with both of them. Like, Chase Young is a generational talent. He's a guy that can completely flip a franchise round. Defensive players are going to want to go and play with him as well, whether it's in the secondary or in the front line. Like, it's people will want to play with Chase Young. People will not want to play against him. It's as simple as that.
Let's compare another early round defensive end, Myles Garrett versus Chase Young. Who would you rather?
Right now,
Chase Young.
I'm
Right now,
Myles
Garrett.
Right now, I'm still going Myles Garrett. But for a generational time, if you give Chase Young the amount of time Myles Garrett's had, Chase Young.
Yeah,
if I had the chance to draft them both, like one or the other at the same time, it would be Chase Young, 100%. No, that's nothing against Myles Garrett. He's potentially top 3 favourite for Defensive Player of the Year this year, but honestly, Chase Young is just scary good. He's a different level.
Yeah, he certainly is. I totally agree. Looking at this Washington football team schedule going forward, just we were seeing if maybe they would be below 500 or not. They are at home to the Seahawks, at home to the Panthers, and then at the Eagles at the end of the season. There's possibly a couple of wins in there, and that would put them 8-8, and they'd be 500.
At 6 and 7, if they get anything against the Seahawks, it's probably a surprise. If they lose to the Seahawks, probably not unsurprising. But then those last 2 games of the season against the Panthers and against the Eagles, as much as it pains me to say it, they're on a very good run of form at the moment. They could pick up 2 wins. They could get to 8-8, like you say, and get to 500. And I don't think they would be. I don't think you could discredit them for that. I think they'd be worth it. They've definitely shown it in the past few weeks.
Now, do they have a chance of winning those games if Alex Smith is possibly not going to be playing? Because obviously Dwayne Haskins came in for the end of the game.
I mean, that's a big if. I think Alex Smith brings so much experience to that offense, and I think you've certainly seen it in the past few weeks. He totally steadies the ship. He's very calm under pressure. I just feel like maybe if things don't start going his way, Dwayne Haskins can get a wee bit erratic, and he maybe can't quite take the game by the scruff of the neck and kind of control it the same way Alex Smith's very good at doing.
That links in quite well with Nick Mullins talking about if it doesn't go your way, going a wee bit erratic.
Yeah. I mean, the 49ers have had a number of issues this year. I would probably say at the top of the list has been injuries. They've just been plagued every week.
It's at the top of the list, at second in the list, and at third in the list, I would say.
Just injuries. I mean, they lost. I mean, Raheem Mostert's questionable now. They lost. Oh my gosh, what's his name? Deebo Samuel. They lost Deebo Samuel after maybe like the first 5 minutes or something, which paved the way for Brandon Ayuk to have a pretty good game. 10 receptions, 119 yards. He kind of thrived on the fact that he was the main receiver there. Just as we were starting this podcast, it was announced that the 49ers have obviously opened up the practice window for that tight end whose name I've just totally forgot again. What am I doing names here? Yes, him. How can I forget his name? They've just opened up his practice window, so obviously you can start practicing again, which is a big plus for them. But they've definitely struggled on both sides of offense, and they've certainly struggled. I would say their next worst point has been obviously the quarterback scenario, which comes with the injuries. Obviously, Garoppolo being out. We've obviously said before, you've not hidden the fact that you don't think Jimmy G's a very good quarterback, and I don't think Nick Mullins is very good either. But obviously, Nick Mullins, if you want to come on the show, feel free anytime.
Yeah, well,
you know,
Mikey appears to be
yeah, I think the 49ers are a team who have nothing to worry about now from now to the end of the season. They can kind of coast it, get the results that they're going to get, and see nothing of it. I think people can probably credit their poor record to the fact that they've just been totally.
Almost every single player's been injured on both sides of the ball.
It's impossible for them to get any run of form going. For them. One win in the last 6, and again, of all people, they beat the Rams.
They've beaten them twice this year, haven't they?
So the Rams, they seem to have the Rams number. I would say on the other side of the ball, on the Washington side of the ball, the biggest miss was your man Antonio.
Tony Gibb.
Washington just don't have a run game without him. I know J.D. McKissick went for 68 yards, but that's about it. Like, it's just they just seem to struggle on the ground. and I think they'll probably be desperate to get him back.
I think
Yes.
if Alex Smith is out, Ron Rivera's smart enough to know, as you said, Kai, that Dwayne Haskins can be quite erratic. You have Antonio Gibson there. You have J.D. McKissick there. You can run the ball a lot and hope that your defense can handle things on that side against the Seahawks. And then we spoke about it earlier today, Kai, as well. Against San Francisco. Just checking he missed that game yet. So against Seattle's our next game. Apologies. And we spoke about it earlier today. Terry McLaurin and Dwayne Haskins went to college together. They work well together. That was probably one of the only bright spots from Dwayne Haskins' time as a starter. So I'm not going to throw this off to loss because the Seahawks have had their problems this year. I do think that'll be a very interesting game, but it's definitely one that Washington can win.
What I've just noticed that I've obviously missed out so far, Washington didn't score a single offensive touchdown.
No. That's why I said their defense won them that game.
Obviously they got a couple in defense, and then the rest were just field goals. But yeah, I actually didn't notice that until we were sitting here just now. But I think they'll probably be glad to get that one over the line and move on to the next couple of weeks. And they've got obviously quite a few big games to come.
That Washington defense, I think, is hugely underrated. Now, again, behind the scenes, I have a Washington Madden career mode, so I know them a little bit better than perhaps some others do. And the actual defensive players, I didn't quite realise quite how good and how many good defensive players have actually got with that defensive line, and their secondary is good. I think this is a good defense, and obviously with you've got Montez Sweat and Chase Young on the edge, and I think for years to come this could be quite a dangerous defense in that division, and a division that's actually got some fairly decent defenses in the Eagles as well, not in the Cowboys, but in the Eagles as well. It's a good defense to go forward, and I say just a few more pieces maybe in that offense, or a solid quarterback play to go alongside Antonio Gibson in the rushing in the running game. That was hard for me to say. And McLaurin, at wide receiver. I think this football team's actually got quite a lot of potential, and I look forward to it. Kai, you're an Eagles fan, right? You're in the
down the hatches, yeah.
Yeah, you're in the NFC East as well with this Washington football team that I think is quite good. But the Philadelphia Eagles played a game this week against the New Orleans Saints, and Jalen Hurts started his first game, and how did he do?
Oh man, he did good.
He did good. What number does Jalen Hurts wear on the back of his shirt?
He wears number 2.
All right, that's how many minutes you have. On you go.
I actually don't have a lot written down for this game, and I know Mikey says this every week, like, I'm not going to say much. Like, I'm not saying I'm not going to say much. I just mean I don't have anything written down, so I'm doing all this off the cuff.
And the timer starts now.
Jalen Hurts is a massive revelation to that offense. Like the spark it brought, having him in the team, night and day. I'm not saying I kind of feel bad for Carson Wentz because I've slagged him all season, and I think he's deserved the slagging but it's not from a perspective of me not liking him. I think it's just because you know how good he could be, and he's just not living up to it. As I said to you before this, Adam, I think this was a win-win scenario for the Eagles. If we'd lost, nobody's really going to go, oh God, we've lost again. You're playing against a team that were top of the NFC at the time with a rookie quarterback starting his first game. But he come in and he had an absolutely great game. I think the O-line actually had a pretty good game as well, but I think part of that was maybe the fact that Jalen Hurts seems to be a lot better at sensing pressure, and he can break out the pocket, as opposed to Carson Wentz, who likes to just stand with the ball for about 10 minutes until somebody hits him.
Yeah, that's what I had noticed with Wentz recently, was he just didn't seem to let go of the ball when he should have. Yeah.
Either run with it or just throw it towards a receiver, but purposely just don't throw it at him, like get it out of your hands. Jalen Hurts seemed to be, his first reaction was, right, look for a pass within 10 seconds, nothing there, let's get out of here. And obviously that showed in the fact that he was the first rookie quarterback to rush for over 100 yards in his full debut since 1958.
Do you know another interesting rushing fact in this game, Kai, which I'm going to ruin because you normally have facts and I destroy them, is that the Saints hadn't given up a 100-yard rusher at all this season.
And they gave up 2.
And they gave up 2 in this game. with Miles Sanders, who was definitely not on my bench in fantasy this week.
With 30 points.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I think that was a big difference, is that Miles Sanders had a great game as well. Mikey's put a timer up to the screen, so I'm purposely going to keep talking just to annoy him. I was generally going to finish in the next 10 seconds, so I'm just going to keep talking. Yeah, Miles Sanders was great, obviously helped by that big 82-yard rush where nobody seemed to be able to get near him. On the Saints side of the ball, I thought they were absolutely dreadful in the first half. To go in 17-0 down against a team like the Eagles, who, let's be honest, haven't been that great, is pretty poor. Tried to make a game of it in the second half, but it was all too little, too late. And I think they kind of pushed a wee bit too hard and let Eagles in the back door at one point. But it was an ideal win for you two Packers fans.
Yes, I suppose
both of you wanted the Eagles to win, don't even talk about the fact that you're annoyed that I'm talking about.
We can thank him for that, can't we, Mikey?
Exactly. But yeah,
I genuinely muted Kai there. Sorry.
What was that? Sorry,
I muted you.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
But yes, we're very thankful for Philadelphia beating New Orleans in that.
Yes, I am happy. I backed the Saints, but I wanted the Eagles to win, obviously. And now the Saints have a very tough game coming up with the Chiefs. I don't know if it's this week or next. This week or next week. So, hopefully another loss for the Saints, because I want them to kind of struggle to the finish line, and hopefully they won't be as much of a contender come playoff season.
Yes. Well, Kai, thank you for your nice, concise Philadelphia Eagles chat. I promise that Mikey will have concise Green Bay chat in just a minute, but I will quickly touch on the next game, which is the Atlanta Falcons at the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers won 20 points to 17. I have noted down here that nobody wanted to win this game because they just kept giving the ball away towards the end of the game. But yeah, 20 points to 17. This might have been the worst game of football I've ever seen Matt Ryan play. And I saw that 28-3 Super Bowl that they managed to lose the Falcons. He
did good for the first 2 quarters in the Super Bowl though, so this one was just a 4-quarter stinker.
Yeah, I know that obviously there was no Julio Jones, which makes a big difference to that Falcons offense, but really there was some of the throws just weren't even close to being going to who they should have been, and the defenders was just reading them. So 3 interceptions for Ryan in this game, which wasn't great for him. Perhaps a better quarterback was Russell Gage, who had 100% completion rate, 100% completion rate for a touchdown, which my fantasy team appreciated, with Calvin Ridley getting that touchdown. I think he's got has Russell Gage not got 100% passer rate in his whole career? I think he's only passed a few times, but I think
possibly. I think it was the same with Mohamed Sanu as well. Every pass he had was basically a touchdown.
Yeah, which is great. Austin Eckler back in the kind of good performance for him, I should say, for the Chargers. 79 yards on the ground, and he caught 9 passes for 67 yards as well. Though there was no touchdown for him. Still a good game. Keenan Allen, 9 receptions and a touchdown. No surprises there, being the kind of main wide receiver for Justin Herbert, who quite likes passing to him. And eventually, they got the field goal as time expired to win 20 points to 17. But yeah, the number of interceptions in that last quarter, they just from both sides, just with turnovers was.
It was hot potato.
Yeah, it was quite painful to watch at some points. I was just like somebody just try to win this game, and eventually the Chargers did. Right, Mikey.
And then we also the special teams blip that the Chargers had on one of the drives just before halftime. It just kind of sums up the Chargers season, in my opinion. It's just been an absolute down year considering the roster that they've got.
Yes, definitely, and hopefully there'll be a high enough pick that they'll be able to improve that team a little bit, though, to move into next year. I think the best improvement, I think you've said this for a while, Mikey, the best improvement would be at head coach, because you don't rate Mr. Lynn, do you?
Not one bit.
Yes, well, we'll see what happens. What happens in the next few weeks and months ahead. But one team who doesn't need to replace their head coach is the Green Bay Packers, and another team who does need to put as their head coach because they've had one recently is the Detroit Lions, and they were playing against each other. And Mikey was having a look at this. The Green Bay Packers winning 31 points to 24, which I'll be honest, I didn't quite realise it was as close as that when when I just checked the score there.
Towards the fourth quarter, when I was watching, I was a little bit like, hang on, what's going on here?
Yeah.
This is a bit too close for comfort, considering that the Lions can make one or two big plays whenever they want. But yeah, not as routine as a lot of cheeseheads would have liked this week. But I don't really have much else to say apart from Aaron Rodgers. Like, I think he's, especially after the Mahomes performance this week, I know they got the win, but I think he's slow. I think it was definitely between the two of them for MVP, but I'm not sure if Rodgers maybe nosed ahead ever so slightly this week. The Saints game for the Chiefs is going to be massive. The Packers' big game of the final three is against the Tennessee Titans, so there's big games still to be won on the board. But Rodgers had 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. He now leads the league with 41 total touchdowns. It's his 5th career season with at least 40 touchdowns. No other quarterback in NFL history has even had 4 such seasons. So just shows the level that he's playing at. I can't remember that there's a famous quote that goes something along the lines of the apology needs to be as loud as the disrespect. I think I've got some tabloids here that just for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers at the start of the season. Will Packers regress in 2020? Minnesota Vikings picked to win the NFC North. Is Mitch Trubisky close to dethroning Aaron Rodgers as the best QB in the NFC North? I'm not sure who posted that.
Who wrote that?
They need American football.
They need sacked whoever wrote that.
Yeah, the apology needs to be louder than the disrespect, because I think with the I spoke to Kai about this. I'm not sure if we said it on a previous podcast with the Packers bringing in Jordan Love and with the Eagles bringing in Jalen Hurts. It wasn't that we are playing these guys right away. It was almost to kind of ignite what had kind of been a bit of a stagnant player. I know Rodgers last season had a good season, but and got to the NFC Championship, but a lot of people were saying maybe he's on his way out, and it's just went the complete opposite ways. With Carson Wentz, it's completely went downhill, and now Jalen Hurts has replaced him for the time being. Whereas with Aaron Rodgers, he's having a career year, potentially going to win his 3rd MVP. Rodgers has more touchdowns than J.K. Scott has punts for the Packers this season.
That is a good start.
Aaron Rodgers has 39 touchdowns. J.K. Scott has 38 punts.
That's impressive. I like that.
Besides my Aaron Rodgers chat, the Packers won. Quiet day for Aaron Jones. Devontae Adams, 118 targets this season with 0 drops. Just again having a career season. But yeah, just it seemed a bit close for comfort in the scoreline, but just happy to escape with a divisional win and an NFC North title.
Do you know somebody, Kai, who I think the Lions fans will be glad he's gone, obviously Matt Patricia, but since he's gone, I hope you might agree with me with this, I think that offense has kind of been released. They've actually just been told, on you go and play. Stafford's been allowed to throw the ball. I know he only threw for 1 touchdown today, and they had a couple of rushing scores, but I actually am quite enjoying watching this Lions offense, which I haven't said for a long time, even though there's no Golladay in it. And when there is Golladay in it, that's going to be really exciting, that Lions offense.
Yeah, I think the change of head coach has probably kind of opened that up for them again. I think he was probably holding them back a wee bit at times. Probably picking the wrong plays or not quite putting the right personnel on the field at the right times. But I think you would like to think if a new head coach comes in, they'll see obviously the change in the offense since he's gone and go, you know what, if I kind of let them have a wee bit of freedom, then maybe we'll do a bit better here. But it'll be interesting to see what comes.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm actually fairly worried, to be honest, because I think this Lions team is a good team. And with the right head coach behind it, they could be a proper competitor in that NFC North.
A very underrated offensive line as well. That's one thing that I don't think they get credit for. There's been a few games where they've really struggled, but on the whole, I think that, as we said, kind of with Washington as well, there's a lot of good pieces on both sides of the ball there for them to make a push at this division title over the next year, 2, 3 years maybe.
Yes,
I think
I agree.
They'll obviously be looking for a new centre in the next few weeks because, as we obviously I mentioned to both of you before the start of the podcast, their current centre Frank Ragnow, not quite sure how you say his name. has fractured his throat. Not quite sure how you do that.
Well, I've wondered what kind of accident occurred that you've managed to fracture your throat, but
Apparently he's been seeing specialists. He can still breathe and his airway is fine, but apparently he's not allowed to
Well, that's
talk.
always a plus to be able to breathe.
that's an important thing.
He's not allowed to talk, which is quite a key thing for a centre to do
Aye.
when you're on the field, is obviously getting the timing for snaps. So yeah, don't think he'll be back anytime soon.
Well, maybe he might get pushed over to guard. You never know. Let's move on to Sunday night football because, well, as the Deontay Johnson owner in both fantasy leagues that we are in, he kept dropping the ball for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first quarter, and then he didn't play for a while because they just stopped putting him on the field. And the Buffalo Bills won the game 26 points to 15. The Pittsburgh Steelers starting to capitulate after their loss last week. Another loss here. Get ready for 3 more, and we're talking about 16-0 seasons, and they go 11-5. There's my Adams outlandish claim of the week. Josh Allen, I thought was fairly impressive in this game, passing to Stephon Diggs, who was equally as impressive. I think we talked about this before, that the Bills and the Vikings both were very happy with that trade because the Bills getting Diggs and the Vikings getting the pick to pick Jefferson.
That's the one thing I was doing all my research on that I mentioned before the podcast. I tried to kind of track down who got what in the trade to see, because it was very rare that both teams win a trade, and both teams have won a trade. We've obviously spoke about the Cardinals Hopkins trade, but so the Bills got Stephon Diggs in a 2020 7th round pick, and they ended up drafting Dane Jackson, cornerback from Pittsburgh. But where it got really, really tricky was what the Vikings got. So they got a 2020 1st, 5th, and 6th round picks, and a 2021 4th round pick. So I tried to track down who they drafted in these 3 draft picks. Obviously, Justin Jefferson from LSU was the first one. But then this is where it got so confusing. They traded their 2020 5th round pick to the Bears for a 4th round pick next year. And then their 6th round pick this year, they traded to the Ravens for a 7th round pick this year and a 5th round pick in 2021. I mean, it's just, I was trying to figure out this because I wanted to see who else besides Justin Jefferson they ended up drafting, but it was too difficult.
You've hurt my
talking
head.
about Diggs if you're talking about Diggs just for Jefferson, it's a like for like trade basically. The Diggs is 1,167 yards, Jefferson's 1,078 yards. So yeah, a great deal for both teams, and this is something that the Bills desperately needed.
Yeah, what's your analysis of the game, Kai? Just very simple, brief, kind of thinking from afar, not having to think too much in depth.
Like
the
me.
Bills, the Bills are good, as we know and as we've said, and I think they're a lot better than people give them credit for. The Steelers aren't as good as the people give them credit for, and actually they've been kind of opened up in the last 2 weeks by their frailties. And like you say, dropping the ball is not a good thing in a game of trying to catch the ball.
No, it's not. And Big Ben threw a couple of interceptions here, perhaps making me seem correct after I ranked him fairly low in my quarterback rankings.
See the thing is as well, right? I think after this season, I don't think the Steelers will have another good season like that next year.
No, I'm a bit worried.
Teams are probably sussed them out, and I think, especially if they've got Big Ben still under centre, I think they might struggle a wee bit. I know there was obviously early hype about Chase Claypool, but he just seems to have dropped off the radar a wee bit again.
Yeah, I think a big part of this was the fact that they had a non-existent run game in this game. James Conner rushed 10 times for 18 yards. That's similar efficiency to the way that Jordan Howard runs with the ball. It was not a great rushing performance, and I think that was also wasn't great.
I think with the Steelers as well, I said this to Kai last night, that the Steelers, you don't even need to mention their defense. They have elite players all over that defense, but ever since Le'Veon Bell left and Antonio Brown and Big Ben isn't elite as a quarterback anymore, still a very good quarterback, but not the way he used to be, obviously. As much as I don't like Juju as a person, that's common knowledge with you guys, but he's a good player. Claypool's a good player. James Conner's a good player. They just have no elite offensive weapons. And I think that's after 11 games. It's took them longer than probably most people would expect to kind of show that, but it's shown now that they just don't have a game changer on the offensive side of the ball, and I think that's what they desperately need at the moment.
Did I see it right? Was it Juju who was dancing on the Bills logo before the start of the game?
Pre-game. Did you hear also what Josh Allen said before game?
No.
Got his team riled up, and he says, "Let them do all the talking, let them do all the dancing. We'll go out there and play our game." And that's exactly what they did.
They did exactly
I think Juju
that.
should probably just retire and become a professional TikToker, because that's what he's good at.
Well, you see, Mikey, you're going to have to keep me updated on that, because I don't know what it is or have TikTok. So you just keep me updated on what Juju's doing there. So you can be a resident TikTok expert. That's your.
I mean, I don't have TikTok either. I think it's Kai that actually prefers TikTok out of the three of us.
I wouldn't say
He enjoys
prefers.
a
It's
wee
not like
video.
a.
I mean, Kaya is slightly more youthful than the two of us, so maybe it's more his generation.
Yeah.
I'm still used to MSN Messenger, so. or Bebo. There we go. That's how old I am. Let's move on.
I'll make you feel really old, Adam, and say that I never had Bebo.
Oh, goodness me.
Oh,
right,
God.
let's move on. Let's move on.
Quickly, please.
Monday Night Football. We just discussed this before we went live on air. We think this is probably game of the week. I think that's fair enough to say.
I was the best to last.
Yeah, I was watching this last night.
I think it was the probably joint best game of the year with the Seahawks Cardinals game that happened a couple of months back.
Yeah, I think
this was one for the ages.
Yeah. I know what I didn't like, though, was it finished on a safety. I don't like 2-point scores. That's the thing that ruined it for me. So it maybe doesn't get to be best game of the year because of a safety. Because I don't.
Maybe in your eyes.
Well, yeah, definitely in my eyes. I'm just weird, that's all. But yes, the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns at First Energy Stadium on a Monday night. It was 47 points to 42, which was a very high scoring game. I'm assuming that was beating the over if you were betting the over-under in that game.
It's a bit.
Just ever so slightly. However, what was really interesting about this game was the number of rushing touchdowns that were scored.
Madness.
In total, 9 rushing touchdowns in total.
That many was it?
9 in
Was
total.
it?
Yeah. But I think
then.
at one point during the game the first 8 were rushing touchdowns, I think. Was that right?
Yeah, I think you would be right actually saying that.
And
the Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, which was a record, I believe. Which
it was the Rashad Higgins one that broke it. It was Chubb, Jackson, Edwards, Chubb, Jackson, Edwards, Hunt, Dobbins.
I mean, I think it shows you these are 2 run first teams, and clearly they were running first. 231 total rushing yards from the Ravens, 138 on the Cleveland Browns side. Baker Mayfield, though, did pass for 343 yards, 2 touchdowns and interception, continuing to perhaps make me look a bit silly after I was saying he's not that great, but we'll see what happens.
He is going up in my rankings. That guy is playing lights out just now, and I'm loving it. I'm loving how composed he is. I love that he thought, oh, you know what, Lamar, you're scoring some rushing touchdowns, I'll score one too. The guy is playing probably the best football he's ever played.
And he still can't get higher than a 90 passer rating.
Yeah, still below 90 in the passer rating. I must say
haters gonna hate.
For you, Mikey, I'm sure you were clenching slightly when you saw Kareem Hunt score so many fantasy points as he did in this game, and you nearly lost your fantasy matchup.
I will say this for the listeners. This week was humongous because it was me versus our good friend Sean Flynn, and last game of the regular season, the winner gets the number 1 seed, and I opened quite a bit of a gap, and then it was basically I had Mark Andrews and he had Kareem Hunt, and I think I was maybe 20 points ahead of him. So as long as Kareem Hunt didn't outscore him, that was by 20 points. I was like, surely. So I only watched the fourth quarter today. I knew I won the game, but I watched the fourth quarter today for the first time and seen that Kareem Hunt scored that touchdown with about 1:04 left to play.
Yep.
And I was like, at the time, if I was watching that live, I was always quite late. At the time of watching that, Sean probably would have been 5 points ahead of me.
Yeah, he was.
And then in the final 60 seconds of the game, Mark Andrews caught 3 receptions in a row for however many yards and put me ahead, and I beat Sean by half a point. And if this was past the watershed, I would be able to share the message that Sean sent me. But since it's not getting aired at that time, I better not repeat what Sean said to me.
I'm just going to do
up the next morning.
I'm gonna do like a wee rewind back to one of the earlier games we spoke about and the Kansas City Chiefs, and that all season Patrick Mahomes has thrown 2 interceptions. The week that Mikey plays against him in fantasy, he throws 3.
I've been very
Like-
lucky against teams I've played against this year, for sure.
Correct.
Yes.
If he doesn't throw one
This
of those
game will also be
interceptions,
known.
Sean wins.
This game will also be known as the feces game, if I'm trying to.
Poogate.
Yes, can one of you explain
Lamar
that?
Lamar Jackson pulled a Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce apparently once for the Boston Celtics left the game to go and drop a deuce, lay a little cable. Let's just say that.
Exclude. Yeah.
And it just kind of happened out of nowhere. Everyone was like, "Oh, Lamar Jackson's at the game," and you see him running back to the locker room, and I think everybody knows what he needed. He tried to claim it was cramps, and if you want to keep saying that, that's fine. But I think Kai knows the exact stat. I think McSorley came in, and they got to maybe 4th and how many was it, Kai?
It was 4th and long, maybe double figures.
4th and long, and that's when Lamar came back.
Lamar comes back in for a 4th down, and then I'm pretty sure he rushed like a good 30-odd yards on that, and that essentially won them the game, I think.
But then another point that there's so many talking points in this game that
such a good game.
Hollywood Brown shouldn't be called Hollywood Brown. I know he caught that touchdown pass, but he was horrific.
Well, on the point of Hollywood Brown, an already rush-heavy offense is going to become even more rush-heavy this weekend because
COVID.
Hollywood Brown and Miles Boykin have just both been put on the COVID list.
Live
So
updates.
This is good news for Mark Andrews. Good news for Mark
And
Andrews
Willie
owners.
Snead. Someone pick up
if
Willie
anybody
Snead.
wants him, yeah. But yeah, just a crazy game. One thing I really enjoyed about it as well was the Browns fans were going nuts. You would have thought that was a full stadium, the way that they were going. Every time they scored a touchdown, they were just passionate passionate fans. Cleveland sports as a whole, obviously, they won their first American sports title in 55 years when the Cavs won the NBA title in 2016. Stipe Miocic, UFC champion from Cleveland as well. Like they've had a rough couple of years, couple of decades, maybe you'd even say that as Cleveland fans. So you can understand why they're so passionate about their sports.
Yeah, definitely. Looking at the rushing game for Baltimore, which I'm fairly interested in, because it was normally a 3 or 4 headed attack, depending how many of them are active at the time. Dobbins took the most attempts, 13 for 53 yards and a touchdown, but the Gus bus was rolling, and he had 7 attempts, 49 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
The Gus bus and the Wayne train.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. Loving it.
Yeah, and Lamar obviously rushed for 2 touchdowns as well. He rushed for 124 yards on 9 attempts, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Crazy.
It really is.
Some game.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Some game is exactly what that is. That I was watching that. Again, behind the scenes, big 60-inch television in my my girlfriend's living room, Claire's living room in our house, and it was a joy to behold. It really was. It was like you're sat in a theatre watching this fantastic production in front of you. It was great. And
fair play to the Ravens. That was a statement one as well because they needed that for the playoffs.
Yes, definitely. And looking at that playoff picture, that's kind of put them level with the Dolphins on 8-5. Yeah.
One last thing as well. I think that the Browns should try and offload OBJ. They're playing so much better without them. It feels like Baker tries to force the ball to OBJ a lot, and it's just not working. They've got some good young pass catchers. Is it Peoples Drew and Higgins, and obviously
Peoples
Jarvis
Jones,
Landry.
yeah.
Peoples Jones, 2 of the best running backs in the league, probably the best duo in the league. Baker, if he continues like this, I can see them being a playoff team for years to come. So OBJ doesn't really fit in at the moment, and if they can get a lot for him because of his status and his how big a name he is, why not go for it?
Do you know who could do with a player like Odell Beckham Jr.? It's the New York Giants.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He could
Did he not used to?
Did he? Did he used to play there? Oh. Maybe they shouldn't have traded him away. Yeah. Yeah, that's you know who? Quick question, just making it Packers related. Would you take him at the Packers?
No.
No. OBJ on one side, no. Devontae Adams on the other.
I think we need he's a wide receiver 1, and I think he would take a lot away from. I don't think Aaron Rodgers would work well with him. Devontae Adams is better than him. What we need is like a I mean, I'm saying this because I've got a Packers season in Madden. We need like a Mike Williams wide receiver too. That's the kind of level that I would like to see on the other side of the field to Devontae Adams.
Okay, question then: Would you take someone like Cole Beasley?
Yes, 100%.
Yes,
I think he's the best wide receiver in the league.
One of the best wide receiver twos in the league.
I would happily take the Beasles. Yes,
the Beasel bus.
Not just the Beasles, just the Beasles, just the Beasles. Or the Beasel bus, yeah. You hop on board that Beasel bus with those luscious long locks. Yeah,
Aye, what a shed.
We're getting carried away.
Yeah, sorry. We're late at night. Yeah.
At the time of recording, it's currently 9:30, so yeah. Maybe a bit too long a day.
Exactly, it certainly is. That's us talked about all the games. We've done well there. Now we have to talk about predictions. Is that right?
I mean, we don't have to if you don't want to. The way you said that there, Jesus.
Yeah, but
really
before we talk about predictions though, Mikey, normally you get us to pick our Super Bowl teams that are happening. Are you wanting to do that this week, or are you wanting to?
We can,
absolutely.
Leave it?
Because normally we're quite good at this.
Apart from 1 week, yeah. But that was 2 weeks ago now, so let's just leave that in the past. So yeah, week 13 we had Chiefs versus Saints, and the Chiefs win. This week there's been changes to the number 1 seeds in both divisions. Anyone want to start off in a division? Any takers? Since we're all NFC, will we go NFC?
Yeah, we normally start NFC, don't we?
Yep. So Packers are now the number 1 seed, so they get the bye, the only bye this year. So we have the number 7 Arizona Cardinals at the number 2 New Orleans Saints.
Saints.
I would take the Saints still. Yeah, I think Drew Brees will be back by then, won't he?
Cool. Doesn't really matter what I say then. Number 6 Buccaneers at the number 3 Rams.
Buccaneers at the Rams.
I would take the Rams, even though I do like the Bucks. I would take the Rams.
5 Seahawks at 4 Washington.
I know that I shouldn't be considering Washington here, but in my brain I am considering them. But I think I'd go with the Seahawks.
Yeah, Seahawks for me.
So we now have an interesting game. The number 5 Seahawks at the number 1 Packers.
Oh, that's a tough game.
This was the same as last year, the divisional game to get to the NFC Championship.
I think just because they've had 2 weeks off, to relax. It's at Lambeau. It'll be in the snow. I'm going to go with the Packers. Doesn't really matter what Kai says because Mikey said Packers too.
And then we have the number 3 Rams at the number 2 Saints. I'm taking the Rams because I think they're going to make the Super Bowl.
And
Adam
needs to take the Rams here because he said earlier he thinks they're a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I would take the Rams, yeah.
So NFC Championship, Rams at Packers. What a game that'll be.
Yeah.
I'm taking the Rams. I'm taking the Rams. I've tried for weeks to get the Rams in the Super Bowl, and you haven't let me. I'm still taking the Rams.
I'm not even saying this in a way of trying to get the Rams into the Super Bowl. I think they have such a good defense that I think the Packers' big thing is just scoring lots of points. They never seem to win games like by narrow margins in terms of like shutting the team out. I think the Rams' defense is too good. I think they stop them on offense and get to the Super Bowl.
Do you know when the Packers struggle? Is when they come up against a good defensive line that bully them. And that's what they have.
Well, that's exactly what the Rams have.
Yeah. So
you know that the Packers have had 4 NFC Championship games over the years, and none of them have been at Lambeau Field. So this number 1 seed, although the fans might not be there, could be absolutely massive for them if they get it. But in saying that, this game will be at Lambeau at time of writing and as our predictions. But yeah, I'm still going with the Rams.
Yeah, I'd happy. I think it's a 3-way agreement there with the Rams.
Perfect. Finally. So we have the number 1 Chiefs in the AFC now. They beat the Steelers to the number 1 seed. So we've got the number 7 Dolphins at the number 2 Steelers. And you know what? I'm taking the Dolphins. As I said, I don't think they expected to be here. I don't mind the Steelers. I said to a few people that they still have Super Bowl aspirations, but the Dolphins are going to come in here knowing that they shouldn't have been here this year, and they will.
I'm going to pin this on Adam and say Steelers.
Oh, you're a horrible man. I'm thinking, and I know that's unusual for me to do, but I'm thinking here, and the Dolphins obviously have a rookie QB against that tough Pittsburgh defense, and I think the Pittsburgh defense could really kind of close that Dolphins offense down. But at the same time, I think the Dolphins defense could close down the Pittsburgh offense. So it's really tricky for me, but I can't look past the Steelers here. I think the experience of Big Ben in the playoffs would come through there. I think Tua next year would win that game, but this year not so much. I go with the Steelers.
Number 6 Colts at number 3 Bills.
Oh, this is another good game, but I'm
taking the Bills.
I would take the Colts.
Does not
Of course
matter.
you would.
And the number 5 Browns, a big important game. I would love to see this in the playoffs. 5 Browns at 4 Titans.
Titans for me.
Titans. I know we said a few weeks ago that the Browns obviously beat the Titans, but I think the Titans won that.
Derek Henry, Kareem Hunt, and Nick Chubb all in the same game. Get the popcorn ready for that one.
I was going to say, we're after dark and you're saying nice things about that there, Mikey. That's
So it would now be the number 4 Titans at the Kansas City Chiefs.
Now, I said all along, didn't I, that the only team the Chiefs don't want to play is the Titans, because I think the Titans could beat the Chiefs. So I would pick the Titans in this matchup.
Okay, I think I can understand your line of thought, but I'm going to take the Chiefs just because they've shown me no reason to not believe in them this season, apart from maybe a game against the Raiders that they got back on them in the division. So I'll take the Chiefs there.
Fair enough.
And then we have the number 3 Bills at the number 2 Steelers.
I think we would have a repeat of what just happened this week. I think the Buffalo Bills would win that game.
I think Diggs and Allen will go off, and I think the Bills will be in the AFC Championship. Would you have said that, Guy?
I said Bills.
Did you say it? Yeah. So AFC Championship, Buffalo Bills at the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think that would be incredible. Big arm versus big arm. Mahomes versus Allen.
Don't think you can look past the Chiefs in that game, though.
Okay. Guy's clearly not paying attention, so I'll say the Chiefs, and then
I would have probably gone Chiefs if I'm being honest. It's hard to not.
So we finally have the Super Bowl. I think will happen. The Kansas City Chiefs versus the Los Angeles Rams.
And Patrick Mahomes' experience in winning a Super Bowl before comes to the forefront, and the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl.
The Los Angeles Rams banish their demons from February 2019, and win their first Super Bowl of many under Sean McVay.
All down to Kai.
You've pinned it on me now, Adam.
Yeah.
I think the...
You're stalling.
Rams.
You're stalling. Oh, you went for the Rams.
I think the Rams. I think they've probably shown in the last couple of weeks that they have the ability to do it. And I think if you get Cooper Kupp and you get Robert Woods working well, the defense will look after itself. And I think you saw this weekend that when Patrick Mahomes was put under a little bit of pressure by a good defensive line, that he starts getting a little erratic.
Well, cue Kansas City versus Los Angeles Rams and Jared Goff throwing 4 interceptions in the Super Bowl. That's my...
I mean, I'm not saying Jared Goff becomes prime Mahomes, but who knows?
Well, there we are. Finally, my Rams are in my Rams, even though I'm a Packers fan, are in the Super Bowl.
Yes, I think that's a fair enough shout, to be fair. I think any team could win that, obviously. And so this week, we've went for the Rams. So we've jumped about between, Seahawks, Chiefs for several weeks, was that right? And then...
Yeah.
In terms of winners, so Rams this week, and then it's been Chiefs, Seahawks, Chiefs, Seahawks.
Well, at least we're staying consistent with a team from the West.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, well done to us for completing that. We've picked a new team this time. So, see, by the time we've done this, I think we'll have picked enough different teams that we will have been right at some point.
At least 1 point. You would like to think, should we put the Browns in next week just for the hell of it?
No, they've got no chance. But a team that might win it.
Browns, Washington.
Exactly. Right, gentlemen, this takes us to our 2-minute warning where we get to discuss our predictions. Exactly, yeah. We've got a wee whistle there. Mikey's trying to do the whistle.
That's my favourite part of the podcast.
We talk about predictions. And again, I've not looked at how I've done this week because I fear it maybe wasn't that good. So I'll let Mikey tell me how good or how bad I was. I did surprisingly well last week, didn't I? I think I might have.
Let's just say Kai was leading it when we first started doing the podcast by a little bit, and then I've took the lead. But now it's all to play for. Are we doing this just at the end of the regular season, or are we doing it all the way up to the Super Bowl?
Well, I mean, I think we could make that decision in the next couple of weeks, depending how far ahead somebody is.
That's something I need to think about. I mean, I would have said to the end of the season beforehand, but now I'm thinking, nah, give me a chance at the Super Bowl. So yeah, let's run through the games.
Yes, we'll run through these games. 16 games this week to predict, and the first one was Thursday Night Football. The Rams beating the Patriots. How did we do?
Sweep for our Super Bowl champs.
Well done to us. The Buccaneers beat the Vikings.
I had the Vikings, so just want to shout out Dan Bailey for that one. Really appreciate you missing 3 field goals on an extra point attempt.
Yeah, well,
and you two had the Bucs.
Yeah, well done to us. The Cardinals beating the Giants.
Sweep for the Cards.
Well done to us. Did we all have a Kansas City sweep?
Sweep for the Chiefs.
Yes. The Tennessee Titans beating the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Kai had the Jags. No, I'm only kidding. Sweep for all of them.
Kai looked with a frightened face.
Kai had that Minshew might play a few snaps, so he was like, "No, I'm picking the Jags. I'm picking the Jags."
Dallas Cowboys, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Clean sweep for the Cowboys.
Well done to us. The Chicago Bears, the Houston, beating the Houston Texans.
Clean sweep for the Texans. Bears obviously with a huge surprise victory there, I think.
Yes, certainly. I agree there. Denver beating the Panthers.
Another wrong sweep. We all had the Panthers.
Bad from us. I assume we all have the Seahawks beating the Jets.
We did.
Yeah. What about the 1 week that Adam doesn't pick Indianapolis?
Kai was a lone wolf on that one. Me and you had the Raiders, Adam. So yeah. Kai wins that one.
Yeah, teaches me right, doesn't it? I should really always back my Colts. But Washington football team at San Francisco.
I had the 49ers D overtopping the Washington D, but I was wrong. Let's just say that.
Yes. So me and Kai were correct. Is that what you wanted to say?
You were. No, I didn't want to say it, but you made me say it. Yeah, you two were correct.
I just like hearing you say that, that's all. Did anyone actually pick the Eagles to beat the Saints?
Not even Kai.
Goodness me. I said this, I know
all of us picked the Saints.
I know everyone will not believe me, but I did actually fancy possibly the Eagles would do it, but I wasn't confident enough to actually pick it in the selection. The Chargers beat the Falcons.
I had the Falcons. I said at the start of the season I was never picking them again, and then I picked them, and yeah, I had the Falcons.
Yeah.
Idiots. I'm an idiot. They're an idiot.
Yeah, well, after the first couple of weeks, I don't think I've picked the Falcons again because they let me down.
I thought I'd learned from my mistakes. I said I'd never put them on a bet again, so now I'm saying I'll never put them on my predictions again.
Right, okay. Mikey's outlandish claim, never picking the Falcons to ever win a game. Get ready for 0-16 seasons for the next 5 years. The Green Bay Packers beat the Detroit Lions.
Clean sweep for the Packers.
Well done to us. Did anyone think Buffalo was going to beat Pittsburgh?
Me and Kai did.
Yeah, I was an idiot. And
you didn't.
And the Baltimore Ravens beat the Cleveland Browns.
I had the Browns, but it was I was going to make a Lamar Jackson joke about why he went to the bathroom and the colour of Cleveland. Anyway, yeah, you two had the Ravens.
So how does that leave the scores for this week, and how does it look for the year to date?
It leaves it very, very interesting with 3 weeks of the regular season, but we'll obviously need to discuss if we're doing the playoffs as well. So for the week, I had 8 out of 16.
500.
500,
yeah, 500.
Not good. Not what you want when you're in the lead. Adam, you got 12 out of 16.
Oh, goodness me.
And Kai with 13 out of 16 for the week.
Goodness me, well done, Kai.
So
I think that's the best. I think your 12 out of 16 is the best percentage so far, and then in the same week, I think just had to top you.
Adam, yeah. I think I had a 12 out of 15 week once, but yeah, Kai definitely with a phenomenal week. I think just looking, the only ones he got wrong.
I didn't back my own team.
Didn't back your own team, and then you obviously had the Bears as well.
Yeah.
The other one.
Who else?
Oh, I took the Panthers to beat the Broncos.
You did, so yeah, that's right. So it leaves us with third place, Adam, on 109 out of 176.
Is that including my 5
Kai
bonus
in
points?
That's with your 5 bonus
Oh, right.
points. Yeah. Kai in second place with 110 out of 176. And for the last week ever, this is all I'm going to say, for the same as in the ESPN and the same in Sleeper, and just like in the predictions, I'm in first place, but only 2 points ahead on 112 out of 176. So it goes 112, Kai on 110, Adam on 109.
With an asterisk. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
So
but yes,
obviously,
it's going to be very interesting.
Just to back onto that claim of Mikey saying obviously he's top of everything, just for people to be aware, this weekend coming, I play Mikey in the first round of the playoffs in our division. And oh boy, you will not hear the end of it next week if I beat him. I don't care if I get beat in the final.
Yeah,
if I can put Mikey
I'm
out.
I'm nervous. I have, for anybody else that's not aware, I didn't join this league in the first season, and Adam won the league. And I've been in it 2 seasons and won back-to-back, and I'm obviously going for the 3-peat this year. But yeah, it's I'm not going to lie, I'm nervous, because I've had the beating of Kai twice in the regular season, so he's due one, let's just say that. So, and then we've looked at the matchups, and there's a couple of tricky ones for both of us, so it'll be very interesting to see
what will make it
happens.
Even more interesting is the fact that Ronald Jones has officially been put on the injury list as well. So obviously you don't have him as an option.
What's very disappointing for me is this is the first year I haven't made the playoffs in our redraft league.
Did you finish in the league, Adam?
I may or may not have finished just 2 games out of the playoffs. 2 games out of the playoffs. That's the important thing.
Dead last is what we'll call it. After you colluded and put the first fixture against me to get the beating of me.
I mean, I did beat you. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's the important thing.
It's all heating up. So any listeners, good luck in all your fantasy leagues. As obviously this will most likely be the fantasy playoffs. So
yeah, some of you might have started the week just gone, but most of you will definitely be in it by this coming week.
I did in the English league. We play over like a 2-week period, a cumulative score for the 2-week period, and then the final over the next 16 and 17 as well.
Ooh,
but,
a week 17 final? No, thank you for me. I don't like week 17. We had that our first season, and that's how Juju won me the league that year.
And Todd Gurley and stuff on the offensive player of the year season was probably benched and things like that. It can be a tricky one.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't nice. But in the dynasty, I look forward to seeing Mikey in the final of our dynasty league, because I was just looking at the total points scored so far this season, Mikey, and you and me are miles ahead of every other team in that dynasty league. we are.
I would love to get. I'm in 3 fantasy leagues.
It's set up for both of you to lose.
Finals. Yeah, that's true.
I hope
if I don't win one of my 3 fantasy leagues, I will be gutted. Absolutely gutted.
Yeah.
I would rather see if you're going to win the English one, because then neither of us were in it, so actually it counts as nothing.
Is it Aham we can blame if he does win the English one?
It is so. Yes.
Yeah. Aye, Aham, don't let him win it.
He didn't make the playoffs, but you can blame him anyway.
All right.
If I win
it. Can somebody just log in, whoever the commissioner of that league is, and just like change his team just before kickoff on Sunday?
That's the thing. My team is even my bench is so good. Like there's nothing I can do no wrong.
Can someone
That'll come back to bite me.
Drop all his players, and then he has no.
I had to drop AJ Brown. That's how bad things are in my team.
Oh goodness
anyway,
me! If there's anyone else from that English league listening, then you need to be drafting better. If Mike is able to drop AJ Brown, goodness me! Right, as you say,
I'm taking the Raiders tonight.
The Raiders at home to the Chargers. You have went for. What about yourself, Kai?
Yeah, I think I've got to go Raiders. We bounce back one.
I would like to go for the Raiders. Am I going to go for the Raiders? Yes, I'll go for the Raiders. All of us been very boring picking the Raiders tonight. And there's also this week, now that we're getting into the end of December, there's some Saturday football as well to look forward to, but we'll make our predictions for those before the games on Saturday. But yeah, for anyone who doesn't already know, don't forget, get your fantasy lineup sorted, not just for your Thursday night game, but for the couple on Saturday as well. And we'll come back Christmas Eve. Kai was telling me that's going to be next Thursday when the podcast is there. We might record it the day before. You never know, but yeah, a festive special. I might put some
just before the Christmas Day game as well.
Exactly, might put some tinsel around my neck. You never know. Depending how I done in the playoffs, I might need it to attach it to the light above me here, but you never know. Anyway, that's us done, isn't it? We'll finish for this episode our PHFL podcast After Dark special, where hilarity has ensued. And thank you for joining me, Kai. Thank you for joining me, Mikey.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes, and we'll see you all next week.